Work. Astad Debu is one of India's contemporary, most important contemporary dancers. When he was young, he learned Chow and he learned Kathak, and then he traveled. He hitchhiked his way across from India all the way across to Europe, where he spent many years. He continued to create a new language in dance, which he practices. In the last 2 decades, he started working with kids who had a hearing disability. He's been working with our kids from the Salam Balak Trust, and his most recent work has been absolutely amazing and outstanding. He's taken young kids who've had no experience in dance or movement. He's worked with them over the past few years at Salam Balak Trust and created some of the most phenomenal new work possible. And it's a great privilege to welcome here one of the great legends of dance of India, Astad Debu. And in conversation with Astad is Punita, who herself has been working in the field of change. They've been working in a number of ways in juvenile homes. They've also been working with the Salam Balak Trust, and we're delighted that she's in conversation. Most importantly, Ford is one of our new sponsors this year, and we welcome them aboard. Anybody who loves cars will always remember the great Ford story, some of it which is seen here. And when we came up with this thought of doing this initiative for young people, though I see a lot of people who are not so young here, but when we did this initiative to do young people, they were the first people to come on board and say, hey, this is something that we really want to support. We feel that there is a great potential for change here. As many of us know, the Zee Jaipur Literature Festival today stands for change. We believe in equity. We believe in democracy. We get a lot of criticism for that as well, because people come and say, I want to see it, and I have so-and-so, and, I'm the most important bureaucrat in the entire world. And we say, yeah, well, there are many other important people, equally important like you, so go find yourself a chair, or bring your chair along. Sometimes it doesn't go too well, gets me into trouble, but still not a bad thing, and we're really delighted to have Ford on board. And this particular session is actually on their initiative. Vinay and his team, who've been fantastically supportive, wanted to create a special opportunity. So I'm going to ask Vinay, who's the head of marketing and sales, if I'm not mistaken, is the director. He's the executive director of Ford India. Vinay, please come on.
Thanks, Sanjay, and thank you everyone for being here with us today. It's heady. This is an amazing forum, and I'm just saying that don't thank us. We'd like to thank you, Sanjay, for having a forum which we could come together with and try to share a message that's really very important for us. We've been in the country for several years now, and if there's one thing that has really endeared us, is that how do we engage closer and closer and make a difference. And to be very frank, this whole idea of having a forum which is completely democratized and which allows free access, there aren't too many opportunities like that. So thank you. Thank you for the years of success in making this so accessible and such a growing influence around the world. What is it that, for a car company to be involved, and why are we here today in a literary fest? Well, to be quite frank, we believe there's a Henry Ford in all of us. There's an innovative streak, there's an engineer, there's a photographer, there's a writer, there are artists in all of us. How do you bring about that spark and realization? And what we realize is that regardless of whatever we have as an education system and others, there needs to be a lot more holistic from a point of view of bridging gaps that are really there. And we had a chance to see that, and we'd like to play our little role in supporting that. So that's really what we are about today. And I think whether it's in the form of a dance or a picture, or you can articulate yourself in any way. There's nothing to hold you back, and there shouldn't be. You should be able to express yourself in any form, but more importantly, you must believe in the freedom and the empowerment that you have to do that. So if there's anything that we like to do and be a part of, is that we like to inspire, we like to educate, and we like to support the empowerment of that free-flowing thought and opportunities that we all have. When Henry Ford started, it was opening up the roads to mankind. That's really what it was all about. Here today, we too would like to be a part of that journey, which is to inspire, to educate, and to empower. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us today, Astad. Looking forward to understanding your journey and your experience in being able to do that. Thank you. Punita, over to
Thank you so much, Vinay. Thank you. Could we have a little bit of music first, please? Could we have the music that Astad wanted, please? Thank you. That was a very beautiful lyrical introduction to your unique form of dance. Astad is a contemporary dancer and choreographer, as we all know. Astad, you have a very unique dance style, jahan pe you've combined classic and modern dance styles. I also understand that you have trained in both Kathak and Kathakali. Can we just trace the journey back? I've known you for a long time, लेकिन मैं बहुत बार ये पूछना चाह रही थी आपसे. थोड़ा थोड़ा हम हिंदी में भी बात करेंगे क्योंकि यहाँ बच्चे हैं. ये एक्चुअली एक बच्चों का वेन्यू है और यहाँ कोई बच्चे हैं जो अंग्रेज़ी उतनी अच्छी तरह नहीं जानते. तो इनके लिए वील एंड अगर आपको anyway, as you said, I asked Astad, can you speak in Hindi? And he said, Punita. I grew up in Bihar, right? Okay. So, Asad, how did it all start? I mean, it's a little unusual at that point for a young boy to get so interested in dance.
नमस्ते। मेरी यात्रा जब मैं 6 साल का था और मेरा सौभाग्य था कि मेरे माता पिता ने एक छोटी सी झलक देखी मेरे में और मैं घर में उछलता था, तो उन्होंने कहा चलो उसे डांस क्लास भेज देते हैं। तो जब मैं 6 साल का था तब मेरी यात्रा शुरू हुई और वो शैली थी कथक में, क्योंकि उस वक्त जहाँ मैं डांस स्कूल में जाता था वहाँ कथक या भारतनाट्यम सिखाया जाता था। और मैं 1950s की बात कर रहा हूँ और हम उस वक्त केवल 3 लड़के थे, धीरे धीरे मैं ही एक ही था। तो मेरी यात्रा कथक से शुरू हुई और 10 साल तक मेरी तालीम कथक में हुई थी। उसके बाद जब स्कूल समाप्त हुआ तो बम्बई आए और मुझे आगे सीखना था, पर पिताजी ने कहा बेटे आगे बढ़ना है तो पढ़ाई करनी पड़ेगी। तो मैंने इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ी और उस वक्त बम्बई में 4 साल में मुझे सीखने का मौका नहीं मिला, पर जो भी मैंने सीखा था वो मैंने केप्ट ऑन कंटिन्यूइंग। और एक अमेरिकन डांस कंपनी आई और एक अलग सा नृत्य देखने का मौका मिला और उस वक्त मेरे मन में एक बीज वो पैदा हुआ और मैंने कहा क्यों नहीं मैं भी आगे जाके बाहर जाके सीखूं। और उस वक्त मैंने देखा था कि संगीत में, थिएटर में, पेंटिंग में एक आधुनिक सा मूवमेंट था, पर डांस में कुछ नहीं था। तो इस तरह मेरी यात्रा शुरू हुई और जैसे संजय ने आप लोग को बताया था कि जिस तरह से मैंने हिंदुस्तान छोड़ा, मैं बैकपैक लेके 8 साल तक अंगूठे के जरिए मैंने दुनिया देखी और सीखने का मौका मिला।
एक
और
मिनट, थोड़ा उसके पहले मैंने ये भी पढ़ा था कि जाने के लिए आप एक कार्गो बोट में निकले यहाँ से, वो थोड़ा बताइए।
हाँ, उस वक्त हिंदुस्तान छोड़ना कोई आसान नहीं था। अगर एक व्यक्ति को हिंदुस्तान छोड़ना था तो रिजर्व बैंक पी फॉर्म परमिशन चाहिए था, पर एक लूप होल था कि अगर आप एक लेबरर तरीके गल्फ की ओर जाए कार्गो बोट में, और मेरे साथी थे बकरे, तरकारियाँ, तो उसके साथ अगर आप एक लेबरर के ओर दरिया आप जा सकते, तो उस तरह से मैं निकल पड़ा कार्गो बोट में। 10 दिन जहाज पे था और उस तरह मेरी यात्रा शुरू हुई।
ओके, और पहले आप कहाँ पहुँचे? लंदन ही?
नहीं, लंदन नहीं पहुंचे, ईरान पहुंचे। खुरमशाह है ईरान से फ्रांस के कैले पोर्ट तक। जैसे मैंने कहा, मेरे अंगूठे ने मेरे को इस पूरी अलग अलग शहरों का मौका दिया देखने का। और जाना था अमेरिका उस वक्त, तो फिर जब लंदन आए तो वीज़ा नहीं ली थी। खैर वो तो दूसरी कहानी होती, पर आगे हम अपना काम बताते हैं।
हाँ।
किस तरह से मेरा काम आज besides creating my own work, I've sort of shared and spread my work primarily in the area of deaf, and now for the last 6 years with the young performers of the Salam Balak Trust, who have now, some of them have become a part of the Asta Devu Dance Company.
Right. But Astad, you've jumped a lot of time. I just want to know, what were your influences? I mean, लंदन में आप मार्था ग्रेहम कंपनी के साथ आप जुड़े, हाँ, क्या क्या सीखा वहाँ पे?
ठीक है, मैं लंदन गया था। लंदन में अमेरिकन वीज़ा के इंतज़ार में मैंने प्लेस करके स्कूल है ऑफ कंटेम्प्रेरी डांस, एंड उस वक्त वहाँ मार्था ग्रेहम डांस टेक्निक सिखाया जा रहा था। मैं मार्था ग्रेहम डांस कंपनी में कभी था नहीं, पर उनकी टेक्निक सीखी। जैसे हमारे हिंदुस्तान स्टाइल्सों में कथक, कथकली, मणिपुरी, इस तरह मॉडर्न डांस में टेक्निक्स हुआ करती थी, जिसमें मार्था ग्रेहम थी, होजे लिमोन, मर्स कनिंघम, ऐसे ऐसे बड़े बड़े गुरु वो उन्होंने अपनी स्टाइल और टेक्निक में जब डांसर्स सीखने आते थे वो सिखाते थे और सीखते थे उन टेक्निकों को। तो उस तरह मैंने भी मार्था ग्रेहम डांस टेक्निक शुरू किया, पर 3 महीनों में मैंने देखा कि वो टेक्निक मेरे शरीर के लिए नहीं था। There was not a connection that I found. And also the fact that there came a time when I knew that I wasn't going to get my visa from the US in London. And in those days, there was no faxes and no mobiles. So everything was on the snail mail. So in a way, that was also good. The 8 months that I spent, and I sort of participated in studying and trying to learn. Also the fact that, I started looking at another form at the age of 21. And the body, when you're learning dance, when you're young, you're flexible, you're able to sort of mold yourself much easier than when you sort of come a certain age. There are certain limitations, but those limitations did not stop me, and I pushed the envelope. And then I decided कि चलो वापस हिंदुस्तान तो नहीं जाना है, आगे बढ़ेंगे। कि मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी में कभी पीछे नहीं देखा, आगे ही बढ़ना सोचा है और करते आया हूँ। और खैर कठिनाइयाँ तो बहुत थी और अभी तक भी है, पर फिर भी कभी भी पीछे मुड़ के नहीं देखना है, सामना करना है और आगे चलना है।
तो कितने साल आप बाहर रहे?
मैं 8 साल बाहर रहा। वो पहले एक बार मैं आया था चंद महीनों के लिए, मेरी बहन की शादी थी, और उस वक्त एक डांस क्रिटिक ने मेरा काम देखा, क्योंकि जब मैं वापस लौटा, मैं 3.5 साल के बाद लौटा, तो इस दरमियान में मैंने अपना एक स्टाइल शुरू किया था, क्योंकि मेरे experiences of spending time in Japan, in sort of in Taiwan and Hong Kong. So there were certain Asian influences which started evolving in my sort of dance. And they said, "Aap Kathakali kyun nahi seekhte hain?" And so that was the seed sort of sown at that point of that brief period where I started my first steps in Kathakali. And I studied Kathakali not to be a Kathakali dancer, but to add vocabulary of Kathakali technique into my bank of movement. Because aaj what is very, very blasphemously used, and I really have, would like to say right from the beginning that today the word contemporary dance, or jo aap log dekhte hain, thanks to the dance reality shows, that is not contemporary. जो करते हैं वो ज़्यादातर आपको देखता जिम्नास्टिक देखते हैं, और वो जो बॉलीवुड के जो जितना इन्फ्लुएंस और प्रभाव हो गया है वो थोड़े स्टेप्स ले लेते हैं और बना देते हैं, वो कंटेम्प्रेरी नहीं होता। मैं आज बच्चे लोग को पूछता हूँ आप क्या कहते हैं, मैं कंटेम्प्रेरी, तो मैंने आपने क्या सीखा है? कंटेम्प्रेरी। अरे कुछ नहीं सीखा है आपने। अगर आपको कंटेम्प्रेरी करना है वो बेशक आप कर सकते हैं, पर एक एजुकेशन चाहिए। आप किसी भी स्टाइल सीखिए, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है कि आपको इंडियन क्लासिकल डांस स्टाइल सीखना है। हाँ, हमारे देश में we do not have an institution where contemporary dance, where physical dance, there are now young groups which have come up and have started, but still these groups and organizations which teach dance, I still find them very half-baked, and they do a lot of damage in my eyes, and there's not something very strong. So some of us who are in the contemporary dance, we do come from an Indian dance classical style education, and some of us have gone to study other forms and then brought it into our choreography to create a new style. And that's what I've been trying, and that's what I have been striving to do for the last 44 years.
Would you recommend that to a young aspiring dancer कि आप थोड़ा पहले classical सीख लें to get your foundations right, और फिर वहाँ से आप उठ जाएं?
हाँ, but as I said, आज बच्चे लोग जो सीखते हैं वो चंद महीनों के लिए सीखते हैं या 1 साल। आपको सीखना है काफ़ी सालों के लिए, thereby you get a real strong grip on a particular style. It doesn't have to, okay, it can be Indian classical, but also today, you can explore your body by studying Kalari, or you can do yoga. These, as what you saw today, through the years, my style has become very minimal, and at the same time, I do add sort of techniques, primarily of Kathak and Kathakali. That has been my education. So that comes in, but that is not sort of like forced upon. When I'm creating, and if I feel that there is a certain movement which lends to take it from that particular technique, I add it. Because eventually what I want is my dance should communicate.
मैंने आपके कुछ शोज देखे हैं जहाँ पे छाव डांसर्स, थांगटा डांसर्स को भी आप उसमें उनके साथ एक साथ आप एक अलग सी एक मतलब नृत्य पेश करते हैं. तो छाव तो फोक डांस है, तो उसके तरफ आप आकर्षित कैसे हुए? How did you move from a classical and your own kind of language to a folk form?
Well, that we title it as folk form and classical form. I look at it as movement.
Okay.
I look at it as something what the Chow way the dancers move adds, and it's also I'm able to incorporate into my creativity. So basically, what contemporary dance, which Indian classical dance did not permit and still does not permit, that sort of innovation, and also the stories or the themes one has created in my work through these decades have not been based on the mythological work. One has based works on contemporary issues, on problems which are existing today, or even abstract forms of bringing space. As you saw, that I had purposely, because of the fact this particular style would have just been dance in one form, but I took it to another area and incorporated the space into my work. And that's also another dimension which I look into creating my work. Not necessarily that has to be done on the proscenium stage, you know. While I can be sort of working and talking to you, I can be using this space and working my way out, you know. So that's how sort of one has sort of taken and challenged the space, as well as brought in the theme, which is part of the creativity.
Right, okay. So Astad, you've been performing for, well, a lot of years with great success. When did you make the transition to actually start becoming a teacher and instructor, especially of the school in Chennai, the school for the deaf girls? Can you tell us about that story?
See, जब मैं हिंदुस्तान वापस लौटा और मैंने शुरू किया अपने डांस की पेश करने के लिए, और एक वक्त आया था कि मैं चाहता था कि दूसरे डांसर्स भी शामिल हो, but they were all very, very reluctant because the atmosphere was still like I was the enfant terrible, you know. एक तरह से मैं एक अछूत था कि अगर इससे आप काम करेंगे तो you will be sort of rusticated from that particular style of dance and gurus. And I was frustrated and I wanted to share. And my journey with the deaf really began in Calcutta, you know, way back in 1988, when I knew of a deaf theatre company called the Action Players, and the theatre director Zareen Chowdhury, who was familiar with my work. And I just suggested, Ki, why don't I come and do a workshop for your students? And the fact that they were deaf did not really bother me, and I didn't look at them as, okay, one was aware that the young participants were not able to hear, and now how am I going to start working and approaching dance for them? I was not taught to work with them. It was something which came about in my journey, and I said, okay, let's take this further. And that's how one began. And हमेशा लोग पूछते हैं आप इनके साथ कैसे काम करते हैं जब सुन नहीं सकते? हाँ, so one started teaching them by counting, and the way one introduced counts, though music was being played for the hearing audience, and I was very aware of the kind of music I was selecting for creating the work. So it's not only with the deaf, it's been with my martial artists, or it's been with the street children who come to me to study my style of movement. So the counting pattern is very, very important, and it's very, very slow. So शुरू से करते हैं हम 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, तो सबको, सभी जो करते हैं मेरे साथ काम, सबको ये रिदम शुरू करना है. And this rhythm has to be simultaneous, so that way you are all synchronized, and that's how the teaching begins. जब मैं शुरू करता हूँ बच्चों के साथ, I look during the course of the workshop who has what talent. So that also gives me an insight to the young people who are being a part of the workshop and who are going to be mentored by me. So it's a slow process, and it's sort of also sometimes getting a feedback from them also gives me an approach as to how, sometimes though I sign, my signing is not all that great. And when I'm working with them, sometimes I get very angry. And I will be talking, but for them, they can feel that I'm getting angry. Or sometimes I'm talking and I forget that my lips are not sort of geared and I'm speaking somewhere else. So that thought process has been lost. So that's how sort of the journey goes on.
Have you learned their sign language by now?
Well, see, today, like, I've been working a great deal at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. So I'm very familiar with the American Sign Language. Now, again, English, though it's the common language, the British sign differently, the Australian sign differently, the American sign differently. There are similarities, but still they are very distinct. So I'm more familiar with the American Sign Language, or even how one spells. With the American, it's with one. The British spell with two languages, two hands.
ओके ओके. अच्छा अस्ताद, ये जो सलाम बालक ट्रस्ट है, जो स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन की संस्था है, वहाँ से आपने बच्चों को चुनकर उनको आपने ट्रेन किया है और उन्होंने अब वो बन गए हैं अस्ताद देबू डांस कंपनी का एक हिस्सा. तो क्या जो स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन, एक तो स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन का संगठन है, बट नॉर्मल चिल्ड्रन से आप क्या तुलना करेंगे? Do the street children value what you've taught them more? Are they better students? Or can you not really make a comparison?
Well, can we get somebody to get the music lower
We've
down?
been
Is
telling
anyone-
them actually.
Okay,
Sorry,
fine.
there's a spill.
See, when I came to work with the Salam Balak Trust, and again, इत्तेफाक से हुआ कि जो एक मेरे कॉर्पोरेट स्पॉन्सर्स थे जो मेरा डेफ काम को सपोर्ट करते थे, और संजय हमेशा मेरे पीछे पड़ा था कि आप क्यों नहीं आते हमारे संस्था हमारे बच्चों के साथ काम करने. ऐसे देखिए, आने के लिए तैयार है पर आपके पास पैसे नहीं हैं, और मैं खुद मेरे पास इतने फंड्स नहीं हैं कि ताकि मैं कर सकूं. तो एक दिन मैं अपने कॉर्पोरेट से कहा, उन्होंने कहा भैया अब हम आपके डेफ एक्टिविटीज़ को हम बंद करने वाले हैं. We're not into deaf anymore. We're into street children. So this was the exact quotation from the corporate communication director. I said, okay, fine. So there came a time and I said, Sanjay, okay, I think the time has come. And जब मैं सलाम बालक ट्रस्ट के बच्चों के साथ काम करने गया, काफ़ी बच्चों ने मेरा काम आगे देखा था. वो आए, there was no sort of audition. People came, and that's how the work began. The first work that I did, again, when corporates give you money, then they said, well, we have to see results. We want to make sure that our money is being utilized in the right direction. So I said, okay, fine. So it came a challenge that within 6 months, I had to create a work. And mind you, I'm not an easy teacher. I'm an extremely demanding and a very strict disciplinarian. I teach the Indian way. 10 बार के बाद अगर उसने नहीं सीखा तो चट करके मिलेगा पीछे या मेरे जूते फेंकूंगा. इस तरह से मैंने काम निकाला. हाँ, जिस तरह से इस बच्चों में भूख थी, and in anybody, if you do not have a hunger, you will not try or you will not get on to achieve and better yourself. And what I can very proudly say about these young performers and how they have sort of evolved. You know, they've grabbed the opportunity. Not only them, even my deaf, anybody who I've worked with primarily, or even my sort of performers of Manipur who I work with, everybody, there is a hunger in them. And also I've always been attracted, I do not want to call them, I'll call them myself in my own journey, has been an underdog, you know, in many, many ways. So for me now, I use myself as a catalyst, as a medium, and if I can give them the opportunity and mold them and bring them to a level of excellence and present the work. And also at the same time, I always tell them that you will be role models within your own community, whether it's been the deaf or whether it's been these young performers. And what has happened that with the Salam Balak, there were many people who started seeing these young performers, you know, get kudos, press, travel, all that also got them motivated. Unko bhi, you know, ek opportunity mil rahi hai. But I could not take, I had to put a stop because because funds were limited. But what has been happening is that some of the kids who I have trained subsequently are now teaching. What I find very heartening and assuring of my first deaf group in Calcutta, and today some of my seniors, though they work in other fields, they still give back to the community, and they're doing workshops in deaf schools, or they're sort of creating and directing work. And that's really heartening for me, and that's how I've always wanted them, that you then share it with your own community. And for me, that has been very fulfilling and heartening. And that's how I approach my work.
इनफैक्ट आप काफ़ी यात्रा करें आजकल, और इन बच्चों को आप साथ लेकर, मैंने देखा कि बीच में आप अपना एक सोलो करते हैं, फिर वो आ जाते हैं, और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग, मैंने ये एक शो देखा था जहाँ बड़े बड़े लाइफ साइज पपेट्स को भी, तो पपेट्री को भी आप इसमें इनकॉर्पोरेट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनमें कुछ बच्चों ने सीखा है दादी के साथ. सो इन बच्चों में क्या बदलाव आया है जब मतलब ये 5 साल से आप काम कर रहे हैं?
नहीं, 7 साल से.
7 साल हो गए. तो जैसे अविनाश है जो आज एक कोरियोग्राफर है, तो उसमें जो इंसान जो है उसके अंदर क्या, उसका जर्नी क्या रहा है?
वेल, वो एक पर्टिकुलर बच्चे की बात कर रहे हैं. मैं तो उनको हमेशा बच्चे बोल रहा हूँ. अविनाश की कल सगाई हुई है, यू नो. तो और 3 मार्च को उसकी शादी होने वाली है. तो उस तरह उसके पहले भी एक मेरा एक सीनियर डांसर शमशूल है. तो बदलाव तो ज़रूर आया है. एक डॉक्यूमेंट्री मैंने बनाई है, पर आपको थोड़ी झलक बताएंगे, पूरी झलक नहीं बताएंगे. पर वो कहते हैं, जब बात करते हैं, और हमेशा मैं देखता एक क्वेश्चन आंसर्स का सेशन रखता हूँ शो के बाद. वहाँ पब्लिक इनसे पूछती हैं कि क्या बदलाव आया है, क्या एक्सपीरियंस है. तो वो कहते हैं कि जब हम बॉलीवुड करते थे तो तालियां मिलती थी, फिर लोग चले जाते थे. पर जब हमने आधुनिक नृत्य का शैली में काम करना सीखा है, शो के बाद लोग आते हैं, हमारे साथ बात करते हैं. तो देयर इज sort of a gratifying experience for them, that people are interested, are impressed with how they have sort of evolved. Not necessarily that many have seen what their past was, but it's also amazing, as you, the little demonstration that I did, and for them to again learn this very minimal style where they're dying to move, you know, where they said, "Sir, can't we do a fast-paced number in the earlier creation of my Breaking Boundaries?" I said, "Yeah, we will do that at the end, whereby I can tell the audience that this is what they were and this is what they are today." And they also say, like, you know, we live a lifestyle working with you. Because yes, I do give them, I'm able to give them an opportunity while traveling, you know, through many of my generous sponsors. Like I recall the very first time I took these kids to Bombay, and previously all the kids also have traveled, and the the five-star hotels have been very generous as regards hospitality goes. And I was able to sort of take them and house them, give them an experience. And one of the trustees of Salam Balak Trust said, why are you exposing them to a five-star lifestyle? I said, okay, fine. I got to take them to Bombay. 1 week, I'm going to put them in the YMCA, feed, blah, blah, blah. It's going to cost me 2.5 lakhs of rupees. Are you able to give me that 2.5 lakh of rupees? No. But okay, through the generosity of the hotels, I'm able to house them. And why not? Why not let them have an opportunity to an experience? And that's what they have. Never have they demanded. One day we are in a 5-star. Next month we're going to be performing in Chennai. Okay, we have a 5, but we're going to Auroville. In Auroville, they'll be in a dormitory. That's fine, you know. An artist must be able to adapt and change. And that's another part of education. Because I also sort of stay with them in the same sort of situation. I'm not being housed in some fancy place and then I come. So it's all a part of a team and a part of growing up.
Right. Astad, have you brought something that you'd like to play back?
Sure. Okay. We'll start off the DVD of the deaf. This is my group of Clark School for the Deaf. And this was my first full-length choreography that I did with these talented young dancers. There were 8 of them from the Clark School for the Deaf. And they were trained in Bharatanatyam. And they came into my life when at one point I had brought my American students on a tour of India. And one of the things we always did, we did sort of a workshop in each city. And that's how I discovered this school. And that's how I started working and teaching them. And this particular work is called Contraposition, where I based my work on the Navrasas. And there I had Amit Heri, a guitar player and a music composer, who composed the music live for me. And as I said, what was the marvelous of these young girls, because each rasa was on different count patterns. So at times they were counting as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17. So each section had different counting sort of patterns, which they were able to. And at one point I stopped the music, and they still continued to dance. And that's where the audience were taking it for granted, because they were so enthralled and engrossed by these. They had forgot that these girls were not hearing girls. And that was the most powerful impact. And we did 75 performances in India and around the world. And it was very sad because, you know, there comes a time after every 7 years, so there's a saturation point which settles in, and then circumstances, and the girls are also passing out of school. So we're going to show you a clip of that. So shall we have that clip? Thank you.
It's not working? Is that screen coming on here?
Yeah.
For this one?
Okay, I don't think very many people can see. Okay.
Is this screen working? No. So maybe we should
Okay.
maybe we should just shut that and open it up to question answers, because everyone. Yeah, and this screen is meant to have been working, but which is not. So I'm sorry about that. Anyway, let's open this up to question and answers. Would anyone have any? I'll give you my mic. No, Asad, you keep yours.
Okay.
We also need another mic.
Yes.
It's just wonderful hearing from you. My question is that you worked with people you call the underdogs, people who are hearing challenged, people, street children. Would you also consider working in conflict zones, and do you see, dance like theater as a kind of a healing process for children who are victims of conflict zones of various kinds?
Yes, I mean, it's always possible. It's just that there is first of all, the time. And,
Hello.
there have always been many queries, so why don't you come and work with the, people on wheelchairs, or why don't you come and work with the blind? Or I said, look, my sort of area is with the deaf, so I just like to concentrate. And by just going and giving them 1 day or 1 week workshop doesn't have an impact. And and one of the reasons, whatever I decide to do, I take it on with great responsibility. So again, as you see, like sometimes the people say, why haven't you opened a school? And I'm not, don't want to open a school. I'm the school which will go and spend time with the people who I really want to sort of mentor and bring them up. And that's the way. So sure, it is a healing process, and there is happening. People are taking on theater today. But I also question sometimes how serious it is, how far does it go? And it's always there for the moment. Maybe it does have an impact, but in my eyes, I've always, I'm just about to start a new work with a deaf group in Bangalore. So I'm going to be devoting next 5-6 years of my life towards them. And my Street Children project is now sort of going to be, because the young performers are well trained, they are working with somebody, though they're very disappointed, they wanted me to start another third work, but I said, no, you all are fine. I'd rather sort of devote my time to another group, so it is possible. Yes.
With my limited exposure to languages, especially talking about
louder.
okay, wow, Indo-German languages, if you trace, you can see there's so much commonality that carries across. Would you please comment on your experiences, seeing if that has happened with the dance and dance movement as a form as well across these different styles of dancing, all the way from Western Europe to the Eastern styles that you've been so accustomed to?
What's your...
I mean, are there similar instances of movement in different styles of dancing that one can correlate to, in terms of how you can look at languages and see there's so much stuff that carries on, like small cultural impact that you can see in German language as well as Sanskrit, and see how mankind through its progression has left it straight?
Well, for me, the transition, let's say, working, say, with the martial art practitioners of Manipur, who have been, again, a very important sort of part of my creativity, who've been with me for 10 years, or I'm working with the drummers, again, of Manipur. Now, here I'm talking about really working with people who are actually have movement, have a discipline, And if I compare it to working overseas with another dance company, the approaches are different. Though the language is movement, but again, movement as spoken languages are different. Similarly, movements are. So you have to find, and the fact that I've been able to experience studying overseas, So I have a comfort level, and I try to bridge the gap. Sometimes it's easy, because again, there are cultural differences. You know, when I've been very actively working with performers in the Manipur area, and for them again, you know, when I was working with the martial art, for them, when they were initially, they were just demonstrating their technique. But to bring that technique into movement and into my minimal kind of movement, you know, the fact also the music that I use in my creativity is something totally very, very new to them. So all these elements have to be explained, and through the process, through time and constant working, they get the hang of it, and now they're very, very comfortable. And if I even have brought in another music, which I say, okay, this is what we're going to learn, they're not going to get thrown away. Or when I took the drums away from the Pungchulam drummers, but I said, okay, just imagine the way I was teaching. I use this kind of movement. So that is your imaginary drum you have between your hands, you know. So that's how the process starts. And then once they start feeling comfortable, you know, and you have to have a dialogue. When I'm teaching, though I may be sort of very strict, I have a dialogue going. It's not that what I teach is the cardinal truth and that's the way it is. And if you don't, you're going to get held at. No, because I also take from them, I learn from them each and every time. And you have to be open in learning. Even today, whenever I'm working, I'm always open. Like when I go to rehearse with my kids, and some of the Shamshul and Avinash will recreate sort of a section of a dance, and they'll say, "Sir, हमने कुछ नया बनाया है." So they will show it to me, and I said, "Wow, that works." So even when I go back, I relook at my work from time to time, and I'm bored with a certain section, and I say, "Well, I think I'm going to recreate that part of it." And the fact that they don't get thrown away. They look at it because they are now confident, and that's what also comes through working through time.
Okay, just another two questions. Oh, there's
Okay.
Gilles and Anubhav.
Okay. Right.
And
Gilles,
Neetu. Okay.
go ahead.
Hi, thank you for sharing your path and your journey. It's just very exciting to hear that. I wanted to come back to your style and what you call your minimal style. I wanted to have your views on speed and movement, because you're saying that you're more comfortable, or your choice or your style is more into like a slower pace. And also about stillness, because I have a great, I mean, as a dancer, I have always this question I am still asking myself, how movement starts from stillness. And sometimes I have a lot of activity, energy, images in stillness, and then how do you transform that into movements? I would like for you to share your views on that, on stillness, as well as a choice on a slower pace into movement.
You know, stillness comes gradually for an individual, because, you know, when we're young, you know, we're creating, we're dancing, we have that energy. It's not that my energy is still there, but, you know, you're there everywhere in creating. And through time, as sort of your journey continues, and being a solo performer and just really working by oneself, and as time went on, I also one day I just realized that I was becoming more internalized.
It's almost meditative.
Yeah. And that's for over a decade, I've becoming very, very, and as Punita, it's also very meditative, you know, and it does, because sometimes you are able to convey much more in stillness than in sort of having a set of movements which are everywhere and that energy. But also, let me tell you, being still is not easy. It's very, very difficult. Like some people say, oh, आजकल वो बहुत slow dance करता है, तो बूढ़ा हो रहा है ना? तो I said, नहीं भैया, आप आइए और आप देखिए, आप बताइए, आप कर सकेंगे. So it's much more difficult to be that very, very, you know, slow and controlled self than by being sort of everywhere that I can, you know. But to be sort of just hold that, and sort of keep it and take it there. You know, it sort of requires a lot of concentration. You know, even like in my abstractness, because of the fact that I've had the Indian classical dance, the rasas play an extremely important part. So even if I have to move my arm this way in sort of very fast movement, you can do that. But if I have to move it, if I want to convey, you know, grief, so my Indian classical, my Kathakali training, you know, and it's not every time that I have to use my eyebrows and do this. When it requires, I bring in that, or even just a little touch, an attitude. Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She'll just give you a mic. Yeah, quickly. Sorry.
Just a very simple question. Can
Need
anybody
to hold
dance?
it closer. Yeah.
Can anybody dance? Can anybody be trained to dance? Or do you have to have inherent talent, flexibility? Please say yes. Anybody can dance.
Well, yes and no. You know, dance is so much of part of our tradition. You know, we dance at weddings, we dance, you know. So there is dance and dance and dance. But my style of dance, no. You know, you'll have to come at, like the other day, some lady came after a performance in Delhi just 10 days ago, and she says, I want to dance. And I said, will you teach? I said, no. She says, why not? But I can. And I had to be very brutal, and I said, I'm sorry, first of all, you know, you are gone in age, and I don't see your body will permit you. Because first of all, you really have to be very, very flexible with what I will want you to do. And even with dancers, I just did a workshop in Spain with 50 flamenco dancers. They could all move this way, but you asked them to go down. They were in pain, and after a while they did it. But it's not so, the body is like a machine, and also like a plasticine. You can sort of mold it the way, but when you're young, you're able to do it, able to sort of, but no, you require sort of, not everybody can do what I would like to do. Yes.
Okay, just one last question. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi. I wanted to ask, you were talking about contemporary dance and what Start Today is half-baked. What is Start Today is a lot of ballet steps and Western movements in the form of contemporary dance, like, as in that forms the base. So would you say that contemporary is not so much as dance form, but more of an interpretation?
Yes, I mean, see, the umbrella of contemporary, like, you know, which is now established, and, you know, today the audiences, the ministry, they all accept. And as I said, it all depends on an individual creator, even whether, I mean, theater can be brought in. Like in a creativity of mine, I did a piece called Mangalore Street, which is set in Bombay. And I took a character by the name of Joglekar and his sort of life, a daily life. So not only did I speak, but I also acted out. You know, like Joglekar comes to work and a scooter, and there are different characters, and each character I had was a sort of a prop, a mask. And sort of Joglekar comes and his motorcycle stops, and he goes to the mechanic, and the mechanic is from Goa, you know, and he says, cycle wale sahab, hum aapki cycle वापस लाए हैं. ये एक दिन भी बिना आपके ठीक से नहीं चलती. So then he says, what man sir, तुम ऐसे काय को बोलता है? तुम्हारा साइकिल हमारा साइकिल काय को बोलता है? ये इंडियन माल साला अच्छा नहीं है. क्या इंडियन माल अच्छा नहीं है? आप काम ठीक से नहीं करते, शाम तक मुझे गाड़ी चाहिए. मैं कहा, अरे अगर लाइफ में बनना हो साला तो फिल्म स्टार बनो. कल रात को गैंग के साथ. So the work has been premiered. So that's how I brought in theater and dance, and I could because it was contemporary. It was, I couldn't have, you can't do it in an Indian classical sort of, take it in a sort of, say, Bharatanatyam. It won't work, you know. So yes, people are bringing in ballet or whatever, that's what they have studied. But the whole point is, how does the choreography hold? Whether the dancer or the creator is able to communicate. That's the most important thing. I mean, there is a colleague who's sort of like, I don't care if the audience doesn't understand. And I don't believe in that. That kind of self-indulgent is, I'm sorry, they are not. So that's arrogance in a way. So when an artist creates, he basically wants to communicate in any form. So okay, let me end it with another little, do we have time for a question or time to dance?
No, I think a time to dance.
Time to dance,
Let's
okay.
dance.
Okay. Shall we have the CD on and shall we play the 4th track, please? Thank you.
Get off so you have more space.
No, it's okay.
Yeah?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the organizers of the Lit Fest, and as well as I'm so delighted that Ford has taken an initiative. And I hope their support will be there. I will be coming to them later on, you know. So thank you very much.
Astad, thank you. Not only are you an ageless, timeless dancer, but what has been so inspirational is you're reaching out and helping those who've had much less opportunity than you ever had as a young person. Thank you. Thank you. Can I give this? Thank you. Thank you so much. This is now lunchtime. I'd like to thank Ford once again for this venue. Vinay, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, okay. And we're back here at 2:15. We have a यहाँ पे है, एक मिनट।
इन सर का नाम क्या है?
अस्ताद, अस्ताद सर।
वो अभी बोल रहा था हनी सिंह बोल रहा था।
हाँ?
मैं सोच रहा हनी सिंह है।
नहीं 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 नहीं, अस्ताद देबू है। We're back. So this is Man Singh from an NGO. Man Singh आप जन चेतना से हैं? हाँ, he's from an NGO called जन चेतना। आप हाँ? दूसरा दशक, okay. तो आपने सोचा ये हनी सिंह है? Okay, I don't think, I hope Astad didn't hear that. But I think it's someone that he admires. So.
That's the impact, you know, of the media. And again, like, you know, I hope, you know, ZTV, and I've also been always telling the media, the cable channels, that you don't have a serious single program which reaches out with art and serious art, whether it's dance, music.